Having you all join. Welcome to class 2 for the Python for data science training. I hope you all had a nice day. I think I did. I had a nice day. All right. Today we'll be looking at lists conditional. So let me just go to the classroom. So for the sake of some persons are having issues accessing the learning management system. So if you've registered and you've been approved, every time you want to access the learning management system, you just follow the same link in the email, and it brings you to this interface. After which you can just go down, and you're already logged in. You can go to my programs. So when you get to my programs, it takes you to an interface like this. And here you can see the active program on your profile. In this case, I have this. So I'm just going to click on view program. And then that brings me to the LMS. So the LMS is just a learning management system. It's just the word. Just don't be confused by the name LMS. It's the website, because some people are asking, is it the website? It's just where we have all the modules organized so that we can all have a kind of sequence of learning, easy sequence of learning. All right. So today we'll be looking at last class, we looked at installation and environment setup. Then we also looked at introduction to Python for data science, and we stopped at variables and data types. That was where we stopped last week. The recordings are available in the class on the LMS. If you go to June 2nd, here, this is where the recording is. So you just click on it, and then this is where we'll be adding all recording for each of the classes. It's be linked under this section. All right. So like we did during the last class, I'm going to train for 30 minutes. Then we'd have a quiz break for 5 minutes, train for 30, quiz break for 5 minutes, train for another 30. Then we'll have an open forum at the end. So I hope we we stick to the schedule and time today. All right. So we're going to get right into what we have for today. If you have any question, you can drop it on the Q&A on the Q&A section. We'll answer those questions. So we're going to get started with this notebook. I've also been getting questions, where are the notebooks, and where are the other resources? They're all on the LMS. When you come to lists, you have, after this step, you have the other step, then you see the notebook. Let me go back to the next step. This is the notebook for lists and for loops. So each of the module has the IPython notebook attached to it, so which you can look through and also walk through it. You can try your hands on them. All right. Can you all still hear you? Can you all still hear me? Can you hear me? Okay, great. Can you hear me now? Someone said it can't hear me. Can you hear me? All right. Okay. Thank you for confirming that. So let's go right into what we have for today. But before then, for last class, there were 2 key assignments we're supposed to do: the Jupyter Notebook assignment and the Python crash course exercise part 1 assignment. So for assignments, we'll be submitting them at the end of the week. We'll be sharing with you a Google document where you can submit all the assignments for the week. You can submit everything together at the end of the week. Okay, so just to keep track of what we are all doing. Most of the assignments are self-graded. like as you enter your code, it shows you the output, the answers at the bottom, so as to know the exact whether what you're doing is correct. I would explain to you how this works maybe towards the end of the class. Okay, so let's just get started with what we have for today because of our time. If at any point you can't hear me, please let me know so that I can quickly check my end. All right. In last class, we looked at variables and data types. And to continue from where we stop, I talked about, different data types in Python, right? We talked about the integer, we talked about the floating point number, we talked about strings, Boolean. Now we are getting into data structures. When we talk, so let's start talking about lists, dictionaries, tuples. Those are data structures. And what do you mean by data structures? Normally when you do variable, when you have an integer is a natural number, just like 10, 11, any ordinary number. When you have a float, it's a floating point number, a number with a decimal point, right? Booleans and Booleans, they are all a kind of, and strings, they are all a kind of number formatting. But when you're talking about lists, you are looking at grouping sequences of objects together. Those data type they're also called objects in programming. We know that strings are sequences of characters. When you have a string, such that a string is like somebody's name, like praise, and it's a sequence of PRAISE. That's a string. Bringing all the characters together is called a string. But then there are times that you might want to have like a list, a group of not just one variable. You might want to have a group of more than one variable, and that is where list comes in. It helps you to hold varieties of data types in a particular order, such that they can follow a sequence. Just think about lists as, for example, you could have a list of states in Nigeria. Normally, if you just if you have, let me show you this way. If you just want to write a state, you can just say states. Maybe state 1 equals Lagos. Then you can have another state 2 equals, you can give me your states so that I can add it to the list. State 3 equals Abuja, and on, right? But then you want to save time. You don't want to keep writing state 1, state 2, state 3. You can easily group all of this states into one list called states. And you could say that instead of writing state 1, state 2, state 3, you could just say states equals Lagos, Edo, and Abuja. So what this does is it helps you to, so when you print out states, you have the list of states all together, in one particular list. So it's just literally a list of states. So the good thing about list is that it can hold different data types. It's not just it can hold both integers, floating point numbers, strings, or even words. It can hold different data types. That's the good thing about list. And if I want to access Lagos, I'm going to teach you all list indexing. I'll show you how to get out each of those states if you want to access them, right? So we are learning this because when you're working with tabular data, for example, data sets on your maybe on Excel, in a CSV format, right? You might have to use lists to create some of the columns in that data set. So that's why we are learning all of this. So you must know how to manipulate lists, index lists, and all the manipulations that comes with lists. So I just want you to understand the basics of lists. All right, moving forward, let me just follow what I have on the notebook so that we can move on quickly. For example, we have this name called Grace is feeling good. Here we know that this is a string. right? And if you want to, from what we learned during the last class, we learned about indexing, right? Let me just print out the name as well. Grace is feeling good. Now, you might want to say, okay, let me index the name Grace is feeling good. I want to index from position 9, between position 9 and 15. And that is what is 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's going to count the space 6, 7, 8. The next space 9. That is the first word here is F, right? And you know, I'm going to get to 16. So I'm going to index from F to 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. That is the all of this filling. That's what I want to index out. But then I have a step of 2. So this is telling me that I'm going to index F, E, right? Then the next one is I and G. And that's why you have this result. So just as you do indexing and list, you're going to be doing the same. I mean, in strings, you're going to be doing the same thing with list. But I'm just giving you this example just so you know, give you a refresher of what we did during the last class. Now, the beauty about list now is that it can hold different data type. Like this is a string, this is another string, this is an integer, this is a floating point number, and this is a Boolean. So you can have a group of different data types all together within your list. Okay, moving forward, let's touch on a bit of indexing. Now, how about you accessing those elements within the list? How do you access them? Okay, so the first thing you need to note is that just like you do with strings, you can also do the same with lists. It's similar. In strings, you know that the first, like for example, this is the string shoe. The first position is 0 for S, 1 for H, 2 for Z, 2 for O, and 3 for E. But then in lists, this whole element, it does element-wise storage. So this whole element shoe is in position 0, then 1 is in position 1, bag is in position 2, 2.0 is in position 3, and through is in position 4. So if I want to access bag, for example, how do I access it? Just like we did with string, the name of your variable, the name of your list now in this case scenario, and then the location. Bag is in location 2. So when I say item 2, it's going to get me out my answer. Let me load list first so that I don't get an error. You can see that we have our bag out, right? So that's the way to access the link. But then you can also access more than one element. You might want to access maybe 2, 3, 4 elements. And for example, if you want to access bag 2.0 and true, you could either say bag 2 to, this is 2, 3, 4. That's 4 plus 1, 5. Bag 2 to 5. And that gives you the last 3 elements. Or you do 2 and full column. You know, I told you that when you're accessing an element to the end, you might ignore the last position. You might not have to. It's not compulsory for you to put in the last position. You could just say 2 to the end, which is the same thing. The same thing applies for the beginning. Maybe you want to index shoe to this position. You might not have to include 0 when you are indexing, because you want to get to back, right? That is 0, 1, 2 plus 3. So your results will be item. You can ignore 0. This is 0, 1, 2. But because we want this to be inclusive, right? We're not going to stop at 2. That's 2 plus 1. Remember that when we are indexing, the last element is the last element plus 1. So we're going to have this index 2 plus 1 because we want back to be inclusive. So that would be, give me all elements in the item and stop at position 3. So that returns shoe, 1, and bag. So I believe this is getting clearer. Now, moving forward, we've seen how to index one item. We've seen how to index more than one item. And we've seen how to index maybe item in between. All right. Just like we have negative indexing in strings, we also have that in lists. You can do that as well. For example, you have this item and you want to index maybe the last item. You could say item -1, and that will give you the last item. Sorry, let me load. I told you that Python is a sequential language. So because I'd already declared item as this earlier, that's why it's still saying this element. So I have to run this new cell just to register it in memory that I'm referring to this new list. So I'm going to run the cell with my Shift Enter. And so to retrieve the last elements using the negative indexing, I can do item -1 and I get out 0. To retrieve the next one, you could do item -2, you get out the next value. The next one at the back, item -3, you get out the next value, on and on. Okay. Moving forward, let's look at some more examples of indexing. Now, there's something we call indexing and slicing. Just like what we have in strings, I mentioned you using indexing, right? This is an alphabet. I mean, an alphabet string where you have a string of characters A to R. You can use your dot split method, just like we learned during the last class, to split all of these elements. Let me load this cell first. Alphabet dot splits. So you can see that when you split it, it's turns every of this character into individual elements in a list. And now you have a list. Now we can manipulate this list further and say, I want to get alphabets A to E. How do I do that? You can just say alphabet.split. Then the index from A to E, and that is what? 0, or if you don't want to include 0, but let me include 0 for the sake of people that are just beginning so that you don't get confused. Is 0 to what is that? Can we give me the answer? Is 0 to where am I supposed to stop? Is 0 to, I want to get out A to E. What's the last index? What will be the last index? Okay, 5. So that gives me A to E. So we can see how we are manipulating our lists using list indexing. Okay, so I hope we got that. Let me move on quickly because we have so much to cover today. We also have some inbuilt functions in Python, and it's called, we're going to introduce them slowly so that you can understand them in bits. We have the learning. I use the type function to check the type of the data type of different characters or different data types. Yes, using the type function, you can do type enclosed in a string, and it tells you that, oh, the data type is a boolean, a bool, and all of that. We have another function called the len function, and what the len function does is to help you calculate. It tells you the length of the elements within that object. In this case, if you want to find out the length of elements in this string, you don't have to start counting, right? You can easily just say length of all of these elements, and then it gives you the answer. For example, your where you're going to need it, for example, you want to do, you have some indexing or some slicing to do, or usually you use it in the for loops as well. But then if you want to do some indexing and slicing, now you have A equals I have this list. Let me use the alphabet list. Please. Okay, let me save it as my splits. So you can, as you're writing this, you can save it into your own variable name so that you can always refer to what you've written in the code with a variable name. Now I'm getting an error because my naming convention is wrong. I can't use dash within my names. I can only use underscore. So that's why I'm getting an error. All right. So I've saved alphabet.split into my split. So now I have a new list called my splits. Now this list is so long, and if I have I can't spend all the time calculating or the length of the list. I can just say okay, the length of my list is what. You can use length function to find that my underscore splits, and it tells you that the length of the list is 18. So you can easily manipulate that list. Okay. So we have different methods, list methods, just like we have in strings. We talked about the append, the upper, for strings, we have upper, lower, and so many of those list methods. For lists, we have append. I'm going to be showing you what each of these methods mean. So methods, like I explained last class, methods are actions you can call off a function. What do I mean? For example, you have a particular object. An object, when I mention object, I could be referring to an integer, a float, a boolean, string, or list. It's a list object. You can apply some methods on it, because those methods, if you don't have them, you might have to write the codes to get them out. But because in Python, it has been inbuilt in Python, so you don't have to write it. You can just call it out yourself. All right. So given this list called my lists, right? What if I want to add another element to the list? There's a method called .append. You can easily use .append to do that. And when you run my list, you can see that the element 6 is added. We can have more items. For example, I want to add 8, right? So that list, you could just do my list 8. I see that 8 has been added to my list. Now, there's another method called pop. And what pop does is that it removes the first element. It removes an element based on the index. For example, my list has elements 1, 2, 3, 9, 0, 7, 8, right? I want it to remove the elements in index 1. So I ran pop already, so I'm going to run this list again. I want it to remove the elements in index 1, and that's 3, right? I want it to remove 3. So instead of me doing some manual coding, I could just call my .pop method and say my list.pop, pop out the elements at position 1, and it's going to remove 3 for me. So when I run this, it tells me that 3 has been removed. So when I run my list now, let's take note of the difference. Now you can see that 3 has been removed from this list. We have now 19078. So those are ways we can actually manipulate our list. As we have .append, remember .append appends an element towards the end of your list, and the pop pops an element out of the list based on the given position. So you could also have .pop without putting anything inside. By default, it pops out the last element in the list. Okay. We also have .reverse. And what .reverse does is that it reverses your list. It changes the direction of your list. For example, we have my list 1907, and when you reverse it, when you hold the my list.reverse, what it does is it changes this to 7091. So that's another method that we use in my list. We also have sort. We've talked about append, pop, reverse, sort. So this is the fourth method we're talking about. Dot sort. What does sort does is it sorts the element. For example, you have your list as this, and then 7091, it sorts it. By default, it's a reverse. You can say reverse equals true, right? Dot sort reverse equals true. That is, you want it to be in the reversed format. That is, you want it to be in descending order. So that's why you're putting reverse equals true. By default, the sort's in ascending order. So if you want to sort it in the descending order, you would use reverse equals true. So it helps you to sort in this format. Okay. All right. We also have inserts. Insert method, what it does is that it inserts a particular item inside your list. Given this list, you have my list, and then you want to insert another element between position at position 2. This is 0, 1, 2. That at this position, we want middle to be there. So it shifts every other element to the front and then inserts that particular element you have there. So when you do that, you have your new list. You can see that it is now 97 middle 10. If you want to insert another element like fine, you can see that fine now has taken the position of middle, and it has pushed middle to the back. All right, so that's way to insert elements in your list. Okay, so wow, we have a lot to cover. I hope we're able to get to it as fast as possible. Okay, now I want to touch on nested lists. I think that would be good before I get loops. Nested lists. Now, lists can hold other lists. And it's interesting to know that because we will see the application as we progress in the class, why this is actually very, very good. But then what I mean is that you have, this is string, this is another string, and is another string. Then you have this as another string. Let's take note of, this is a list. This is a list. This is another word list. So you have like 5 items within these big lists. Indexing this list now is different. So we understand how to index a single element, right, from the list. Now, what if you're having to index a nested list? How do you do that? So let us pay attention to this. Given states as Habia, Adamawa, Enugu, and this other item, and we want to get out the elements in position, this last one, right? The first thing you do is what say states, based on what we know, right? We could either say states -1, right? Or you could say this is 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. State 4, states 0, 1, state 4. Sorry. You see that Python is a top-down state 4. Python is top-down. So because I've loaded one state before, it's already reading that in memory. So it's like I had to load this again. So you have Abia, Damawa, Enugu, this and this, and you want to index out this. We've gotten it out. But then inside this list, we want to also index salad. How do we do that? We're going to put another square bracket and then index out the position. That is, this is rice is in position. I mean, salad is in position what? 1. And that's how to get to salad. So we can see that it's a bit, easy. But when you have a very, very well nested, so in our assignment, I think the second assignment, we have a bigger nested list. So you see how to, you have some experience indexing out something a little bit complex. But let's just still take more examples so that you can further understand. What if you want to index southwest? How do we index southwest? The first thing to do is identify the position. Where is southwest? Southwest is in this list, right? Haven't identified that. You have to find out what position is southwest in the bigger lists. Then you count 0, 1, 2, 3. This is in position 3. So I'm going to say state 3. All right. State 3. State 3, usually if you're using Jupyter Notebook, it's good to load it to see if you're actually getting the right answer. And so I'm actually getting the wrong answer. I'm supposed to use states instead of states. So I've cleared that error. If not, I'll be wondering where is the error coming from. Okay, so state 3, we've gotten out southwest and south. So, but then I want to get out southwest. I would have to put another square bracket. And our southwest is in position 0, so you just write 0 and then it gets you out southwest. Okay, I believe we understood this. Let's move a bit further. Now, if you want to index out more than one, it's similar to what we've been learning. You want to index out more than one element in the list. In this case, one index out Z and X, and you want to index out Z and X, right? So it's still the same process. You first of all get out the bigger list. Where is it in the bigger list? This is what? 0, 1, 2, 3. You write alphabet 3. Alphabet 3. Let me not forget to load this so that I can have it in memory. Now, alphabet 3 gets me out LZX. But then I want not just R, I want Z and X. And Z and X is what? Z starts from position 1. So I can just say 1 to the end. And that gets me out Z and X. So I believe we are getting this. Let me take the last one before we do our quiz break. This is another list. This is, I think, a well-nested list. Now, let's take notes. The first thing you need to pay attention to, if you're asked, okay, get out 2, 3. How do we get out 2, 3? Here. Let's note that you count the elements in the external list. How many elements do you have in the external list? This is what? 1. This is what? 2, 3. And this is what? 4. Let's get it. This is a nested list inside another nested list. So you have 4 elements in this external list. So the first thing is to identify the position of what you want to index out. I want to index out 2, 3, and it's within this big list, right? So the first thing I get out is what position is this bigger list? That is the position words for 0, 1, 2, 3, rather position 3. And so I get out the big list. Now I have another list inside another list. So I'm going to count, I'm getting to 2 and 3, but then 2 and 3 is within this bigger list. I'm going to count how many elements are in this list. We have 20, 30, 40, and then this bigger list. So, but position 2 and 3 is in position 3 here. So we have 0, 1, 2, 3. So I have another list with 3. And then that brings me to this 1, 2, 3. But I'm still getting somewhere. I'm getting to 2 and 3. So I'm going to do another indexing. Now I have just strings, 3 strings within this list. So I'm just going to count the position. The position 2 and 3 is what? 1 to the end. And that gets me out 2 and 3. You can see that the list manipulation is a bit, you have to pay some attention to details when doing that so that you don't fall into error. So at this point, we are going to pause before we get into loops for our quiz break. All right. If you have questions, please drop it in Q&A. Okay, I should take it again. All right. I'll do that one more time before we get into our quiz break. If you have questions, please. Okay, this question, Alabi Paul, this has been answered over and over again. It was answered during the last class. Okay. Because we have Jupyter Notebook is it has a kind of format, and then when it's online, sometimes in the process of downloading, it could just change, the format can change. And that's why even if you're transferring via email at times, it could change the format. So anytime you have like a format change like that, you just save it. It's showing in the JSON. So you just save it. I'll show that towards open forum. I'll give a demo to that. So let me just concentrate on what we have for now so that we don't eat into our time. All right. Okay, let me take the last part again before we get into our quiz break. Let me go back and share with you this part. I believe it's this part we're referring to. Now, we've learned how to, are we clear with indexing out a single item within the list, right? Given lists. Is list Y. Okay, we have this list Y, right? We are clear with indexing out a single item. Like, for example, if you want to index out 4, you could just say 4 is in position what? 3. You could just say index 3. And that gets you out the element 4. I think we are clear with that. Now, I think where we are not clear with is when we have like lists inside lists. Okay, then because of complexity, let me just change some of this figures so that we don't get confused with the order. Okay. Now, assuming we understand that if you want to index out, right, you want to index out the 477, that is our position what? Position 3. So you just use list underscore Y3 and then you get it out. But then what if you have another, I mentioned that list can hold other lists. You can have another element that is a list, an element called alpha, beta. Right, this is another list. What if you want to index out alpha, beta? It's still the same process, right? Because you have 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Alpha, beta is in position what? Position 6. So you can easily index out alpha, beta, right? So just think about it as just another separate element within the list. Now, what if you want to get out beta? You know that beta is another element within this smaller list. So to do that, you have to first of all index out alpha, beta, and then afterwards, you're focusing on this new output. Beta now in this new list is in position what? Position 1. So you can just add the next square bracket and 1, and that gets you beta. Do we understand this to this point? Did we get that to this point? I need some reaction so that, because if we get that, yes, we can proceed. Are we okay to this point? All right, great. I think I can get I've gotten to yes. So now that we know how to do this, now it's possible for us inside this beta list, right? This list. Let's take note that this is this alpha beta is a list inside this list Y. We have 145, 26, 36, 477, 5776, 653, then another list called alpha beta. We can have another list again. That's the beauty about list. It can hold different items together. We can have another list 3.4, 4.5. Right? If we want to index out 3.4 and 4.5, it's still the same process. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This is 6. And this is what? 7, because they are separate elements. So that's what? List 7. Okay, great. Now, inside this list 7, it's possible for us to have another, this is one element, this is another element. It's possible to have another list inside list 7. Let me give it another list. Let me use A, B, and C. All right. So I believe we understand how this nested list is coming together. Now, inside this 3.4, 4.5, we have another list inside, right? So to get that out, how do we get out ABC? We've gotten that list 7 is what? List 7 is, oops, sorry. I think there must be a comma error somewhere, or a square bracket error. Okay, a square bracket error. All right. Okay, so now we've gotten out. We know that this is 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. This is the first list. We added ABC as another list inside this 3.4 and 4.5. So now, what if we want to get out ABC? We have to first of all index out this at position 7. Then, now that we have the new list, you can even save it as another item so as not to confuse yourself. You can say I have A now, my new list now. Just forget about list Y and say my new list is A, right? And then to get out this lists of ABC, I could just say A is in position what? 2. That is 0, 1, 2, and that gives us ABC. But if you don't want to do this assignment, you can easily say list Y seven, which is this, right? And then because I want to index out this, this is 0, 1, 2. This is in position 2, and that gives you your ABC. If you don't want to index C, you could go further and say C is in position what? 0, 1, 2, 2 again, and then it gives you out your C. Do we understand now? Are we clear now? All right. Because of our time, I think we are clear now. Let's take our quiz. The quiz hasn't started yet. I was just going over the last explanation so that we can be on the same page. All right, so we're going to go right into the quiz now. I'll share the link shortly. If you have any question, we'll tidy that up during open forum so that we should not eat into our time. Now I've eaten into our time. So let's see how far we can go today. Okay, let me share the link to the quiz. You can do the quiz here. I just shared the link via chat. Let's go, everybody go to this link, please. We're going to do a short quiz. It's not difficult. As soon as we are all present, I'll just start it. I'll start the quiz. We have 2 minutes for this quiz. 4 questions. Each question is 30 seconds. So try as much as possible to just try your hands on it. It's going to help you, or further understand the concepts that we've been explaining. I'm waiting for as many persons to join. Thank you all for joining. I just shared the link now. The link is here on the chat. More persons. Okay, let's start because of our time. We'll be starting now. The first question, name list Tega, Patrick, Bob, Mary, index out. What would this index produce? What will be the answer? Answer 15 seconds more. 10, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Thank you. Awesome. Great. Thank you all. And the answer is, let's go to the answer. I think I have to navigate my screen so that I'm able to. We are 57% correct. And let's go to the next one. Thank you for that. Let's go to the next question. The next question has started. Please let us make our votes. You have 3 lists. Oh, okay, good. Please let us vote 9, 8, 7, 6, 1, 4, 3, 2, 1. Thank you. All right, let us reveal the answer. The answer is 0245. Okay, we'll review. Okay, let me just review it as I'm talking. Do you know why it's 0? Now, my list is, the list is this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? And then it's now equating this new list to a new name. Don't be carried away with all these naming conventions. It's just saying this new list is equals to this list, that this is this. So just when you see equals to, just know that it's still the same. This is what we are focusing on. This same list we are focusing on. It's just telling you that, sorry, index out. If I want to, okay, I didn't teach you this, but then when you're updating your list, there's a way you can change the position. You can change the elements using the list index. So here it's saying my list 0, that is my list in position 0, that's this position. Change it to 0. So that's what is, so that's what's happening here. My list position in my list 2 in position 0, that's 1, change it to 0. So it's going to replace 0 with 1, and then you have 0, 2, 4, 2, 3, 4, 5. I hope we get that. Okay, so let's go to the last question. Otabil, Mark, Osasi, and everyone, thank you so much for answering. The next one is this. Can you index out this list? This should be easy. All right, great. I have a wonderful class. Well done. Okay. It's amazing Python. That's the answer. When I saw 100% on this, I thought everybody answered this correctly. All right, so what is happening here? So this is saying that we want to, remember I told you about increments, step increments when we're doing strings. It also applies to lists. Between list 0 and 6, or even if it's not there, 0 to the end, that's giving all of the lists, right? Can you give me all the elements in skipping 2, that's in the increment of 2. So the first element is it. That's the first element. After skipping the next 2, that it is, the next one is amazing. Skipping amazing and learning, the next one is Python. Skipping Python and everyday, there's nothing. So the answer is it's amazing Python. So that's why we have that. Thank you so much, everybody. This is our result. Thank you, Elle, for attempting. I hope you learned something. All right, let's get back to class. Do we have any questions? Okay. Moving forward, we'll be looking at control flows very quickly. All right, so aside list, right, we have conditional statements. And what this does is, because there are times, and now we are gradually getting into programming. So all that we've been doing some building blocks, like we've been trying to build up knowledge of variable expressions. We started with expressions, variables and data types. Then we said with data structures, and now we are getting to control flows. Okay. And then when we get into this dictionary, we'll get more advanced data structures. So for now, let's do some control flows. And the reason why you're doing control flows is like when you're writing a program, right? You want to, programming is just like, it's very, you're trying to navigate and to build a solution that involves a lot of decision making. At some point, you want to manipulate, you want to do control flow logic. Like there's a lot of logic going on in programming. You want to analyze some things, and all of these, right? They are very, very important to learn the terms, the syntax on how to do them. And that's why we are learning this. Sometimes you might be thinking, I'm a data scientist, why am I learning Python? When you're building your models, you're doing your modeling and all of that, you need some of this basic knowledge of programming to navigate some solutions, some problems when you're faced with them. So if you don't know this basic, you'll be having challenges at that point. Okay, so the first thing we'll be talking about is loops. Loops. What are loops? Loops are sequences of they help you to navigate sequences of instruction. It's just like you are literally in English. What do you mean by loop? When you're looping through a particular thing, you're like doing something over and over and over again. Maybe you want something to be done over and over again, and then until maybe a particular point, there's a condition for stopping. That, okay, can you do this over and over again until such condition, some conditions are met. And that's, just think about loop at that, like that. So there are different ways of doing your loops. We have the while loops, we have the for loop, we have the if statements, right? And we have some other things that we'll also be looking at. So let me just show you the basic of all of these statements. So once you understand their syntax, when I mean syntax, I mean the way it is written, the logic on how it's executed, you'll be able to know when to apply them. Okay. Now, like I said, a while loop. Now going to while loop. While loop repeats a particular condition until a while condition statement increment. That's the syntax. This is the syntax for while loop. And what it does is that it checks this condition over and over again based on this statement until that condition is met. Now, let me explain further. When you're writing your while, you have a counter. For example, what I mean by counter is, I want to, what this thing is doing is that I want to print out some statements, right? We talked about dot format in our last class. I want to print out a particular number less than 10. If we have the number is less than 10. Let it print out the number is less than 10. Else, let it print out something else. That is the number is equals to 10. So this is what I want to execute in these statements. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to have a starting point. That is, I want the numbers to start from 4. So I'm saying, given this variable 4, well, the first variable, we use variables because you don't want to use static. If you just write while 4 is less than 10, then writing your if statement, you won't be able to control your logic. So that's why you use variables. Now we are saying the importance of variable names. So it's called a variable. It allows for flexibility. And so when you have while I can be 4, 5, 6, 7, but then our starting point is 4. Why I is less than or equals to 10. That is the condition. You know, that's our syntax. While the condition is while this number I is less than or equals to 10. If I is less than 10, print out I, the number less than 10. Else, print out the number equals to 10. So based on our understanding of logic, at what point will it print out the number equals to 10? Is when maybe we have 10 or 11, 12, 13. But you remember that our stopping criteria is while I is less than 10. So this code is going to stop when I is equals to 10. I hope we are getting this explanation. So the while loop does a particular, this is the condition, this is the statement we are trying to execute, and this is the increment. Can we see the syntax? Well, the first thing is your counter. This is I equals 4, the counter. Then you have the condition, I less than or equals to 10. And then you have, this is your statement. That is, this is what you want the code to execute. And then you have your increments. So when you're doing this, right, and you say while I equals 4, I equals 4, while I is less than or equals to 10, if 4, now let's now start taking the numbers gradually. If 4 is less than 10, the first thing it's going to print out is what? 4 is less than 10. Because it has printed out 4 is less than 10, it's going to skip the else statement and go to the counter to increment it. What it does here is that it takes the new, that's I is still 4 because we are still inside this loop. So I is still 4. It's going to say 4 plus 1, which is equal to 5. So your new I is what? 5. Then it goes back to your while loop. It's not saying that the new I now is 5. Is 5 less than 10? Yes, 5 is less than 10. It comes to the next step. If 5 is less than 10, print 5 is less than 10. And that's why this next line gets printed out. You can see how the logic works. Because this line under the if statement is executed already, it skips the else statement, because else is just like otherwise. But because this first step has been executed, the else is skipped, and then you have your increments. It increments the I again. Now the next I is what? 6. It goes back again until it gets to 7, prints it out 8, prints it out 9, prints it out, but then it gets to 10. Is 10 less than 10? Yes, 10 is less than or equals to 10. All right, so it still comes down here. If 10 is less than 10, is 10 less than 10? No, so it's not going to execute this code. It's going to come to the else and print 10 equals 10. And that's why you have this 10 equals 10 printed out. But then it's going to come here to the counter again to increment. 10 plus 1 is what? 11. It goes back to, well, 11 less than or equals to 10. Is 11 less than or equals to 10? No. It's no, yes. So because it's not, the condition is not met, that's where it's going to end. So that's why your code is stopping. So I don't know if you understand this while loop. Do we understand that? I want to get reactions. Do you understand the while loops? Okay. Great. Okay, I'm going to take it one more time, then we can proceed. Then we can always, check on the recording so that we can cover as as many things as possible. All right, let me take it one more time. This is a condition, right? While condition statement increment. Let me use a simpler explanation so that maybe this is a bit complex. Let me use another simpler explanation. Okay, this is simpler. Let me use this simple statement. Now, given the first syntax is what? Your counter, right? That is what you're supposed to have first. Comments in Python, you start with hash. You can use hash for comments. So this is your counter. The next thing you should have is what's your code. That's the while condition. Well, so this is your counter. You're saying that I want to start from position 1, position 2. Well, I is less than 5. Print I. This has to be there. This is your what? This is your statement. And this is your increments. So every while loop has this parameters. You must have all of this. So it's just that's the syntax. So you would always be having a counter, a condition, a statement, and an increment. So this counter is saying that I want to start from number 2. Well, I have my I is less than 2. That is, my high is less than, that's a condition. I mean, less than 5. The stopping criteria is 5. Print I, that is, it's going to print what? The first I is what? 2 less than 5. It's going to print what? 2. So after that, it's going to increment it and say 2 plus 1 is what? 3. It goes back to the while loop. It's not going to go to the counter again. We are still within the loop. This is the loop. We are still within the loop. It's going to go back to the while loop to check. Now, our new high is 3. It goes to 3 less than 5. Yes. Prints 3. And then increments 3 plus 1, which is what? 4. Now, our new I is what? 4. It comes here again. While 4 is less than 5. 4 is 4 less than 5? Yes, it prints 4. And then 4 now becomes I equals 4 plus 1. So our new I is what? 5. It's going to come back here again. While 5 is less than 5, is 5 less than 5? It's strictly less than 5 less than 5? No. So it's going to stop here. So this will be our result, 2, 3, 4. I hope we get this. So let me show you another example where this can be used. We can use it in programming. Like maybe you want to write a short code that executes something. Let me write something. You want to say name equals inputs. Let me just use this so that I can. You can either say I plus plus or I equals I plus 1. So let me just go the simple way. So what I want to do here is that I want to print my name. I want to print my name is the name of the user. I want to print it like 2 times. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to take an input from the user, and then while I is equals, the first step is while I is equals to is less than 3. That is when 1 is less than 3. It's going to print out the person's name. Then increment this code again, and when it gets to the next one, that is now 2. 2 less than 3. Yes, it's going to print out the name of the person again, and then your high becomes 4. That is 2 plus 1, 3. Is 3 less than 3? No. So it's going to print my name 3 times. So the first thing it's going to ask me is, what name do I want to give to the system? I want to give the person Grace. My name is Grace. So when I press enter, you can see it's printing my name. My name is Grace. My name is Grace. So that's just a simple, way we can, implement while loops. And that's just a little code. I want to print my name. My name is Grace 2 times. So this is the way you can write that using a while loop. All right, I think we've spent some time on the while loops. Let us move forward a bit. Now, when you're writing a while loop, usually I don't really like using while loop, but it's good to know, right? I like using for loops and functions and if statements, because while loops could be very tricky at some point, but then it's good to know, and that's why we are learning it, right? There are times that you might want to you have to be careful of your condition. If this condition is infinite, like you don't put a very finite condition, your code will just keep executing forever. And then you run into, the system will just be hanging. So you have to be careful of your stopping criteria. For example, if I didn't put a condition here that is stopping this value at 3, maybe I put something that is out of range. I'll just keep my code will just be running, and then to just be like, it to be running forever, and then that's where the system would maybe crash or something. So, but then there's a keyword called the break, and it helps you to break out of the loop. That's what the break does. It can break out of a particular loop, and then if you want it to stop executing, you can break out of it. So that's what the break does. And you let me show you where you usually use it with an if. You can use it with an if statement, and you can use it inside a while loop as well. So let me show you how this executes. All right, so we have x equals to 0. You understand this, right? While x is less than 10. Okay, sorry, I think there is a message. Let me check. Okay, so we have x equals x less than 10. Print x while x is less than 10. Now normally this code should execute how many times? It should execute based on this condition, starting from 0, 1, 2, 3, 0 and the increment. So it should execute like 0 to 9, right? Because of this condition. But because we want to control the outputs, we can use a break keyword to do that. So how are we going to do this? Now let's look at how this code executes. While x is less than 10, print x. That is going to print 0, right? Adding 1 to 0. We are still on 0 using our dot format, right? It's going to print adding 1 to 0. Now x equals x plus 1. We're not printing anything. So now x is now what? Your new x is what? Your new x is what? X is 1. It equals to 0 plus 1, which is equals to 1, right? Okay, so this is what is happening here. Now your new x is 1, but we are still within the code. It's now saying if x is equals to 3, break. We have not it checks, is 1 equals to 3? No. So it goes back. It goes back to this while loop. The new x is what? Is 1. 1 less than 10 prints 1. So that's why this 1 is printed. Adding 1 to 1. That's why this line is printed. Now x is now 1 plus 1, which is equals to what? 2. So now our new x is 2. It comes here. If x is equals to 2, equals to 3, our x is 2 equals to 3? No. So this code will not execute. We're going to come back here again to the while loop. 2 less than 10? Yes. Print x. Print 2. It's going to print out this 2. Then adding 1 to 2 dot format. It's going to print adding 1 to 2, and that's what we're having here. Now our new x is now 2 plus 1, right? Which is equals to 3. Now we've gotten to x equals to 3, but then there's another if statement that is controlling our outputs. 3 equals 3 is it true or not? Yes. It's saying 3 is equals to 3 is right. So it's not going to come here. It says break, that is stop the code. So now this break keyword, what is it doing? It's stopping our code, and then we are out of the loop. We don't have to execute up to 10. So you can see the essence of the break keyword. So let's go into for loop. For loop is quite interesting and easy. I know some persons might be wondering that while loop is so technical, but let's look at for loop. So what for loop does is this is the same format of for loop. For item in objects, the statements to be executed. Okay, so you can loop through strings. We've learned about strings, right? You can loop through strings, you can loop through lists, you could loop through any iterable and item. Like iterable items are like items that have location, like your string, you have like 0, 1, 2, 3 for strings. For lists, you also have position. They're positional items. You can loop through tuples, you can loop through dictionaries. Anything that has like a iterable item, you can actually loop through them. And so I'll just show you an example. For example, I want to print each of these characters within Grace. I want to print them in separate line. I can just use my for loop. So what I'm going to do, based on my syntax, it says that for this car is my own username. I can use another name. I can say for every, just ensure that you're using the right naming convention. Every car, I don't want it to be very, very long. So for every character in my name, and my name is Grace, right? Then you have a semicolon, and you have like, when you press enter, automatically gives a tab, print the character. So this for loop is going to loop through. It's going to print the first one is what? Okay, let me use a print formula so that it would be very, very clear. Character. Sorry. Is car. Okay. So this would print the character is maybe G. The character is like that in sequence. So because I didn't define every car, I didn't define what was the name car is not defined. Okay, sorry, every car. Yeah, so you can see that it's printing. The character is G, the character is R, the character is A, C, E. So that for loops helps you to loop through a particular you can loop through a string. I'm looping through a string here. If I want to loop through this list, for example, I want to multiply, or I want to take the cube roots of all the elements in this list. I can use a for loop to perform that function, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to loop through this list using the for loop. I'll say for I can use any, you can use any item or any variable name. For I in the name of the list, right? Then your expression, your statement. What do I want to do here? I want to multiply every item. Now the item is I, right? Every item raised to power 3. So what it does is that it picks up all the items in my list and multiplies them by 3. Takes the cube of each of the item, and then we have the result. Okay, so the next one is, this is another one. For number in my list, print num and end it with a space. That is, I want to print every number in my list, and I want to have a space in between each of those numbers. So that's what this is doing, and that's why we have this. So if you take note of this list, the list is in a list. Now I'm printing them into just the straight line, and I have this list. So their way of, for loops helps you to look through a particular iterable, like lists, like strings, and all of that. Let's take the last one. For num in my list, number is, using your print format. Now you can see the application of print format. Number, that's the first number. Number is 2, and I am in a for loop. That is, it's just the way of printing your statement. So it's going to go through all of this list and give you this outputs. All right. So that is for. We can also use for loops with strings. For character in this string, print the character, that is, put a space between each of this character, and then you have these outputs. Okay. These are just more examples. This is a sentence. I'm so happy to learn new things. And then you can say for character in sentence.split. Now, when you do sentence.split, this is what sentence.split does. Let me just print it out so that we'll see the outputs. It splits it into a list. So this is what sentence.split does. I'm so happy to learn new things. So you can look through this sentence.split, and then you can have your results. Okay. There's something called tuple as well. Tuple is just like a list, and then it's also an ordered sequence. You usually use tuple to organize, like maybe you're writing state and capital, the things that should go together. Maybe maybe somebody's name and matric number, state and capital, some things that are supposed to go together. You pack them within a tuple. So that's what you use tuple for. It's like it, and then it comes with brackets. That's how you define it, your tuple, in this kind of bracket. So if you have a tuple, Lagos Ikeja as the first tuple, Edo Benin as second tuple, and then Imo Owerri as the next tuple. If you want to index out the tuple at location 2, you can use your normal indexing to do the same thing. If you want to loop through country, like you have a tuple and you want to loop through the elements in the tuple 1, 2, 3, 4, you can use your for loop to do that as well. Okay. Let me see. Do we have any questions at this point? We are supposed to do our next. Let me check the time. Next, please. Okay. The class notes is on the LMS. I just showed you the LMS. I showed you the LMS before the start of the class, while we're just starting the class. The class notes are there. You can access them on the LMS. All right. Okay. So you're talking about tuples. Tuples are just they have the same function as lists, right? I'll just explain how to use for loop to loop through elements in a tuple. Like for this tuple, now we have a tuple of names, Grace, like Grace, Victor, and Femi. I have a number, Grace. Okay, this is not a number, but I was just giving an example here. There are different type of data type. We have the tuple, we have the sets, we have the lists, we have the dictionaries. I'm going to show you there are different they have different functions, and they have their different properties. Like the lists, they are mutable. The tuple, they are immutable. Lists, that is, you can change them. You can perform an update on your list. You can change elements within the list, but for tuples, you cannot. And for sets, you cannot have duplicates within a set. So there are some basic things that each of these data structures they have as their characteristics. I'm going to share with you there's an image I have. I don't know if I can access it now. Well, I think, let me just get one random from the internet so I can just share you the link. Lists, tuples, so that it gives you an overview. Dictionary, it sets, image, comparison. Yeah. Let me look at one that is not so. Okay, this one is a bit complex. Let's see it. Now, a string is immutable. A list is mutable. I'll tell you what mutable and immutable means. Tuple is immutable, set is mutable, and dictionary is mutable. Mutable means that you can they can be changed, that you can change their positions, you can update them. But then for like lists, you can change the position of a list. For example, you can, like what we saw during our tests, you have my list, you're updating the position of the list. But for tuples, for tuples, you cannot do that with tuples and strings. Strings, lists, tuples, they are ordered. Any of the data structure that you see that you can index, you can use indexing for. That is, you can select their location. They are ordered. That means you can order them. They have a particular order, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and the rest. But for sets and dictionaries, they don't have. So you might not really get the full picture until when we talk about dictionaries. And that's why I wanted to get to this at the end of when we finish talking about dictionary. But either way, let me just explain that. Then we have the syntax for string. That is your double brackets. For lists, the square bracket. For tuple, the brackets. For sets, you have the set and the bracket. And for dictionary, it's their curly braces. Yeah, so this is an example of a string. I didn't want to go to this. Sorry. This is an example of a string, an example of a list, which is like LO, an example of a tuple, sets, and a dictionary. For string, of course, we know string is just that's just single sequence of character. For list, you can store different type of data type like set, lists, sets, and even dictionaries can be stored in a list. For tuple, you can also store any data type. And you can also, for sets, you can store just integer, string, and tuple, but you cannot store list, set, and dictionary. So those are the differences between them. Then inside a dictionary, dictionary is very, very unique and very flexible, because dictionary is just like a building block to build your tables. When you start dealing with your tabular structures, you can use a dictionary. And when we get to dictionary, explain what that means to you. So I hope you get that, you get the overview of what we are talking about. Very quickly, I want us to cover if-else statement, because we've talked about control flows, right? It's important we talk about our if-else statements. We are still on control flows. All right, let's do this before we take our quiz, and then we get to dictionary before we do our questions tonight. Okay, for our questions, we take that during the open forum, so I don't break into what we have during the class. So all the questions, just keep it coming. I'll take it during the open forum. Okay, so let me get through if-else statements. Conditional statement, we've seen how to use the if and else statements when we're using our while loops and the for loops, right? But then it's also good to show you the flexibility, what they can do, and all of that. All right, so the if-else statements are also part of your control flows. They help you to control certain logic within your program. For example, you want your program to perform a particular function. So you just use your if-else statement. It's used in a lot of then when we used to talk about SPAT systems, even the building block of programming, use your if-else statements a lot before the advancement into all those for loops and the rest. If the if-else statement had been available for a long time. All right, so this is the syntax. If condition, then execute that statement, do something. We've seen it where we applied it within our while loop statements. Okay, so we have some comparison operators in Python. We have the less than, we have the greater than, less than, equals to, equality sign. This is the equal, it's different from equals to. Equals to is like you are assigning or defining a variable. For example, you can say this is for variable assignment, a equals to 3. As you are telling us that we want a to be equals to 3. It's different from a is equals to 3. These are two different things. This one is saying that check whether the value of a is equals to 3. So it's going to execute as true in this case, because this is like a comparison operator, because we've already defined that a equals 3, right? And now we're now saying, okay, check, is a equals 3? It's going to give you true. So you can see that this is different from this. So if, for example, you say a equals 4, and using the comparison operator, it will tell you it's false, because a is not equals 3. So this is the comparison equals to, not the equality sign. This is greater than or equals to, which is, it checks whether a value is greater than or equal. You can say is a greater than or equals to. It will tell you that it's false. Okay, a is actually greater than or equals to, because 4 is greater than 3, but it's not equals to 3. So it's either executes whether it's greater than or equals to. The same thing with less than or equals to, and then this one that it's not equals to. Then we have our and our or operators. So all of these, we use them a lot when you're using your loops, your control flows, because you're using it to check for a particular condition. For example, let me give you an example where you can use a loop. Maybe you're actually asked to write a program to check an ATM card, an ATM machine. And then the first step, when you're doing your ATM machine, they'll say, enter your what? PIN. Welcome. Enter your 4-digit PIN number and all of that. And then you enter your 4-digit PIN number. What is it doing? It's actually checking, it's taking the inputs from the user, then checking the database. If what the user supplied is equals to the results in the database. If it's not equals to, it denies access. But if it's equals to, it allows the user access. So what is happening there? You're having a control flow happening at the background. So this is like an example of what is happening. You define your, like this inputs is like a syntax in Python where you collect input from maybe the user. And then you're not saying if name is equals. Now we can see the use of your if statements and your comparison operator. If name is equals to Grace, print access granted, else print access denied, you enter the wrong name. So let me change this one now into password. Note that our if statement is if what, your condition, then your statement. This is your statement that is executing. So if password, now if we run this, we can see the program is active. So now, for example, let me supply another name. Let me say Florida. Now, can you see it's saying access denied, you entered the wrong name? We can see the simple use case of an if statement now. This can be implemented. Of course, there are a lot of other complexities going on in maybe in all the sophisticated systems, right? But these are just the building blocks of what they use it for. I mean, how it's used. So you can see that it denied access, but then let me run it again and check. If password is equals to Grace, now let me say Grace. It's saying access granted, and now I can access that system and do whatever I want to do, right? So that's a simple use case for an if statement. Now, I know you're familiar with if statement because we've used it inside our while loop and our for loops, right? But let me just take more examples. So we have the simple if statement, which is just if name equals grade, print access granted. Here it's telling me name is not defined. Okay, let me just define the name. Name is equals to. Now let's take note why we need our else statement. Access granted. Now we have name equals Grace, access granted. What if your name is not Grace? What if your name is what name is coming to my mind now? Ken. What if your name is Ken? What will happen? This program is going to run forever because we didn't take care of why not. We only we only took care of if. We didn't take care of the why not, right? And so that's why you have to have your else statements, and you hide your else statements to take care of other conditions in case your if statement is wrong. So here you cannot say else. If the name is not, you can just say print wrong name, print wrong name, and then it prints it out. Sorry, just hello. Sorry for that break. Okay, so print wrong name. So in this case now, we've taken care of the other cases when the name is not Grace. So what would happen in this case? It's saying is a wrong name, right? So you have your results. So that's why you use your else statement. But then there are times that you might want to have more than one condition. You want to have like 2, 3, 4 conditions, right? So that's what you have. There's something called the elif. The elif command states that, okay, this is we've done this already, right? When I was talking about password, saved password, you have the password saved in the system. Then you want to collect a password from the user. So you're going to check if the password is equal to the saved password, print correct password, else print you're a criminal. So in this case, you're using your if statement to check if, like a simple authentication system, you want to authenticate what is happening behind the scene, whether the person's password is correct. So here, if I'm going to run this program, for example, I enter 56, it's going to tell me you're a criminal. So if I enter 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, password correct, and it's going to give me access to the system. All right, so let me quickly touch on the elif statements before we take a break, and then we'll take a bit look at dictionaries if possible. If, elif, and else. Please, can we all still hear me? All right, great. Thank you for confirming that. No, there are times that we might want to have multiple conditions. You don't want to have you won't have more than one condition. And in this case, that's why you introduce your elif. The elif condition is to control other conditions. Like you could have if 2 equals 0, print first condition true. Elif 2 equals 1, print second condition true. Elif 2 equals 100, print third condition true. Else, so that's how you use your if else. If elif else, you start with your if, then you can have many elifs, like 5, 6, 7 elifs. before you have your final else. But by according to right programming practices, you tend to like reduce your if, elif, elif. It's not a good programming practice to have several if, else statements within your code, right? So that's why you have to now advance to the use of for loops and other loops that you can, use. You can use for loops and the likes. So but however, for the sake of what we are learning now, you can have your elif to control several conditions. I'm going to, for our exercise, there is an exercise that I would be doing that would need to use this if else and elif statements. So I'm going to also show you what to do with that exercise. All right. So if 2 is equals to 0, print the first condition equals to elif. If 2 is equals to 1, that is if is equals to 1, print second condition is true. If 2 is equals to 100, print third else. So now because I didn't even supply the value of 2, it's telling me that print none of the conditions were true. But if I have something like this that takes and because this is actually even hard coded, right? So it's very difficult to, can you see why it's good to use variable names? It's very difficult to control what your user is except if you want to use inputs to collect inputs. That is, you want to use the inputs to collect your value from the user. You can say if I here so you can see your variable is, I mean, using the use of variable name is very, very good because it helps you to control your program. Now here I can collect an input from the user and say that let my inputs be, because I know what is in the code now, let my inputs be 100. If 100 equals, if I equals 100, it's supposed to print third condition true. But why is it printing none of the above were true? Something is happening somewhere in my code. Let me check. Okay, so what happened there is because it was seeing my input as a string, and that's why it was giving me none of the above condition were true. But I converted the input to integer so that it can help me check my inputs as whether it's correct or not. And then that's why I'm having the answer, the right answer that I wanted. So if I say 100, then it's saying third condition true. So we can see the use of your if elif statement here. So at this point, I want to take questions. We're supposed to cover a little bit of dictionary today, so that by Friday we're able to okay, here I talked about tuple here as well. Yeah, a little bit of dictionary. Let's talk about tuple and sets. Yeah, and this after the break. But then I want to take questions. Do we have questions? If we don't have questions, we can. But before the question, let's take a break. I mean, let's take a quiz break. Let's take a quiz break before the questions. Let's take a quiz break. I'm going to share another slide or quiz quickly so that we can try our hands on it. Hope we're not sleeping.
If you're sleeping at this time, you're wrong.
Okay, please, it's time for quiz. I'm going to share this. I'm going to share this with you all so that we can try our hands on it. Okay, this is a short quiz just to test your knowledge. Try as much as possible to try it. You're not hard, it's not the test, so I mean just try it. I'm going to wait for as many persons to join. Before we start. I think the quiz is 3 questions, 30 seconds. Are we ready? Can we start? I think we have like how many people joining now? Let me see. All right. Okay, so we're going to start now. Let us start with the first question. What's the purpose of a for loop in Python? To define a function, to iterate over a sequence or iterable, to create a conditional statement, to perform arithmetic operation. What is the purpose of a for loop in Python? We have 14 seconds more. Okay, and that ends it. Thank you. Let us share our answer. Okay, so the answer is thank you, Ken. Thank you, everybody. Let me show this. Let me go back and show the results. Sorry, I think I made a mistake. It's taking a while, so. Sorry, just a minute. I'm trying to get some things. So, okay. So I iterate over a sequence or each variable. All right, let's reveal the answer. Yeah, that's the answer. You know, I remember I mentioned that to use a for loop to loop through a particular sequence. You want it to execute over and over and over again. It's not to define a function, though you use for loop within a function, but not to define a function. It's not to create conditional statements. You don't need for loop to create an if statement. If statements can be created themselves. To perform an arithmetic operation, though you use for loops also to do you can use for loops to perform an arithmetic operation, but that's not the purpose. The purpose is actually to iterate over a sequence or iterable. All right, let's go to the next one. The next one says that almost everybody got it. Well done. For I in range 3, print I. I'm not talking about range. Okay. Range is a range of a value from 0 to the last number, not inclusive. It iterates 0, 1 to the last number. Now I think I've mentioned the answer. Okay. So it's going to log in 1 minute, 1 second, and we are here. Let's reveal the answer. All right, almost everybody got it. When you're looping through a range of values is start from 0 to the last number, not inclusive. So when you're printing it, you're going to print the first number, which is 0, print the second number 1, print the third number, which is 2, and for the fourth number, which is it's range 0, 1, 2, 3 is not inclusive, so it's not going to print out 3. So that is a range of values. So let us move to the next one. Thank you, everybody. The next one, 30 seconds. What is the purpose of the continue keyword in a for loop? I talked about break, but I didn't talk about continue, right? Continue is used like break too as well. Okay, I didn't talk about continue, but that's why we have quizzes. So I'm going to talk about it now. All right. Thank you, everybody. The purpose of the continue keyword is to skip the remaining code and move to the next iteration. So break helps you to break out of the code entirely. It breaks out of that loop, right? But then a continue keyword skips a step. It depends on the number of steps on the loop. It skips, like a break keyword exits the loop. A continue keyword skips the remaining code and moves to the next iteration. It skips that step of the code, the bottom of the code, then it moves to the next iteration. If I is equals to, maybe you're setting your starter, your start counter as I equals 1, and you have a condition that I must be less than 3. I have a continue inside that code. It's going to skip maybe I equals 2, and then it will move to the next iteration. So that's what continue does. All right. So thank you all so much. That's comes to the end of our quiz. So we have Oladimeji, Azan, Kenechukwu, Osasi, and everyone. Thank you all so much for the attempts. I hope you learned something. Okay, so at this point, let me take questions. Let me take questions. Do we have questions? If we don't, I'll just go over the ones that are in the chat so that we can I can attend to them.
So great. I want them to raise their hands and I can unmute any particular person who's got questions. And how many do you want to take?
I'll just take 3. Then I'll go over the one as in the chat as well.
Could you kindly raise your hand if you've got questions to ask? Thank you.
So while we are thinking around the question, let me just go over the ones we have because of our time. The first question I can see here is can I okay, was this from yesterday? All right. Sorry, I'm trying to get that question. Okay, if possible, we get the notebook after the session. Yes, the notebook is in the classroom. Like I said earlier, we can access it from the LMS after each of the module. Can access your notebook from the LMS. I think this was yesterday's question. Let me just come through today. I need clarification on these questions that keep bothering me. As a data scientist, I'm supposed to know most of the code offhand to become a professional. If yes, then my second question is, what is the use of scikit-learn? Telly, how do I get to use scikit-learn to my advantage? Because it has a lot of libraries and functions. Lastly, must I understand deep statistics to become a data scientist? Thank you for these questions. Yeah, this question is not supposed to be for this class. It's supposed to be for our mentorship class. So we'll be having mentorship sessions. And the reason behind this session is that there are several other things that we are supposed to know aside just learning how to code and like how to apply what we are learning to real life situations, So all of this will be dealt with during the mentorship session, which will be happening on Saturdays, on Saturday evening, every 2 Saturdays. Like, so the next one it will be next week, Saturday, not this one, the next one, be having mentorship session. So please don't miss it. Saturday, 8 o'clock. So you can come with your questions. We'll be having our mentors, talk to us from different, how to apply what we are learning to what the real world situation is. So for this question, so it's something that we should answer there, but I'll just, give a little hint. As a programmer, right? Data scientist, nobody knows everything offhand, right? If anybody says I know everything, right, it's a lie. So, but the truth is, as you keep practicing. There are some things that you cannot that cannot be taken away from you because you do it over and over again. It's just like if you're a doctor, there are some things that you can just do off the top of your head because you're used to it. So the more you solve problems, and that's why we are so focused on project-based learning in our program. We want you to I could as well as, some trainings, they'll just go into theories. I could as well start with all the theoretical concepts, explaining theories, and then we have all the theories in our head, and then we do a little bit of practical. No, but then we feel that when you do project-based learning, it excites people, and as well, you tend to see the big picture of what you're learning. So the more you solve problems, you get better at what you're writing. So you might not have to know the code often, but then as you grow, you find out that there are so many things that you just remember how to use them. You just know, okay, what is it? Like now we're talking about string. So if anybody's asking what is a string, you know what a string is. You won't just say, oh, a string is just maybe a rope or something. No, you say a string is a sequence of character. There are sequences of characters because you've learned it right since day one. So that's that. Scikit-learn. What is the use of scikit-learn? When we get to machine learning class, I'll tell you what the use of scikit-learn is. So because we are in Python class now, let us leave that for now. How do I get to use scikit-learn to my advantage? It has a lot of libraries. The truth is Python has lots of libraries. Scikit-learn has lots of libraries, but as you solve problems, you get to know which library you are supposed to use at every point in time, right? And it's also good that we practice the act of debugging. What do I mean by debugging? Is whenever you're faced with a problem, like aside from sharing, it's good to reach out to people on the community to help you, assist you in solving the problem. But then sometimes you can even check online, okay, write some, ask ChatGPT. I hope we know how to use that. Maybe we're having one of our hands-on sessions for the whole community on how to use two prompt engineering. Chat, you ask questions, and then it gives you some ideas. You're able to solve some code. So in the process of doing that, you're learning more than somebody just telling you the answer. So you get to learn more when you do all of that. You might not have to know all the libraries, but as you solve problems, you use the libraries. Understanding deep statistics. Statistics is very key in data science, in machine learning as a whole, because of interpreting problems. So many problems are very, very they are probably they are let me probably I'm trying to call the word probabilistic. Oh, sorry, I'm murdering the word, but it's not coming to my mouth at the time. But we have so many things that are not that are under whether or not. But with statistics, we have several all those t-tests, ANOVA, and so many things that tells you you're able to give statistics theory to your results. When you have the results, you're able to interpret it. So just basic statistics will do. But if you're doing some advanced, you want to do so many advanced data science and all of that, then you might have to go into knowing some real statistics, right? So, but then it's good to know little bit of statistics, mean, median, most, and all of that, measure of central tendency, and so many of all the statistics in interpreting your problems. We'll talk about that in machine learning class. All right. So I think that I've taken so much time answering that. Let me show you. I think I get this question a lot about the content on the LMS. So let me just please come again. Let me see. Please come again with the info you shared on the assignments from the last class. I can't remember the information. If you can, please let me know. The LMS is not an app it's not an app, but then you can access it on Spaces. It's on the website. It's just the LMS is just the word learning management system. is a website where you have our website, where you have a section of our website where we have a course for participants within our program. So it's designed in such a way that you have some text and video resources just to guide you through or to structure our learning, because when you're learning, it's not just good to just, you're just learning with videos and then you're just learning with just your video. But how do you gather the resources together? So that's why we have the LMS, and also to control to monitor our performance in this program. So we monitor our performance through the system. So let me just show you quickly the LMS. I'll check your question. Let me just go over the LMS quickly because I get this question over and over again. So everyone that enrolled for the data science program, you get a link, a mail that has this link, the challenge page. I mean, this Data Gen Z Africa link. So every time you visit this link, right, for the first time, it lands you're going to land on a page like this. I'm trying to refresh the page. Maybe it's going to take me to that page. But it's on the website. So you'll be seeing Data Gen Z website, right? Let me go to if I log out, can I remember? Okay, let me just log out, for example, just to give an overview of what it looks like. Yeah. So if you're not logged in, you'll be seeing something like this, right? And if you've not, you've not accessed the LMS before, it will ask you to request to join. So when you click request to join, right, we get a notification that there's somebody that is requesting to join the program, and we allow you access if you're supposed to be in the program. All right. So once you get access, you can log in and log in with the user. Before you request to join, you'd have signed up on the website as a user. So you can now log in with your email, or rather you use your Google, you can use the email that you use to access the platform, login. So after logging in, it brings you to this platform. So you still be seeing Data Gen Z and all the other things on the website, and then this. But then if you want to just focus on the LMS, there's this enter full screen mode here. You can just click on it and it brings you to the full screen mode. So you're just, focused on this content. So here you can see, you go through it overview. Welcome to the data science program. You have some stories here to learn. Go to the next step. They are very short things, the curriculum and what you need to learn during the program, the next step, on and on like that. Sign up on this. So you're supposed to go through everything. And there's an exercise here to be done. That's the first exercise, Jupyter Notebook exercise. So you click on it. Now, I think where most people are having problems, I think is there's one notebook, I think this one, the one that has to do with the Python notebook. I think when you download it, this is what you see, right? Now, because this is a JSON form, you can just do Control-S. When I do Control-S, I save this file under for example, my desktop now. I'm saving it on my desktop as a sample, or wherever you want your file to be saved. Sample1. All right, when I save it there, you can see that it's there already. So with my Jupyter notebook on, I can navigate back to my desktop. When I go to my desktop, this is my desktop on my Jupyter notebook. I can look for this is the document, sample1. You can also the document, right? You can also this document, and then this is the notebook. Do we understand how to save the notebook now? So this is how to go over, save that particular notebook. It's because of the process of downloading from the LMS, and that's why you're having this. But this is not presenting properly on HTML, and that's why you have it. So just save it on your system and you can access the notebook. So I hope that clarifies that. This is 10 o'clock. So These are the recordings, like I mentioned earlier, is here under June 2nd. We have the class recordings here. So we'll be adding up other recordings and the link to the recordings here on this in this place, on this table rather. So for other classes, the exercise I mentioned yesterday, I'm going to link up the exercises here too for ease of access. So I'm going for each of the class, I'll link up the exercises that you're supposed to do here. They are here already, but I'll do it here as well so that you can all have it here and download it and do it. And I'll also link up where the link for submission, where you're supposed to submit the exercise to there here as well, so that you can submit your assignments. All right. I hope this helps clarify. Please, oh, my screen is stopped. All right.
No, it's not. No,
Sorry
it's not.
about
We can
this.
see your screen.
Okay,
We can
okay.
see your screen. It's not stopped.
Okay, okay. It's 10 o'clock now. We have to close. Let me just take the last question and then we can go over the recordings for the other ones that we didn't get quickly. Get. All right. The questions is, can you go
Okay,
over the
Oluwadan. Are you taking the hands
Damika?
raised? Sorry to cut in. Are you
Yeah,
taking the hands
sorry.
raised?
Yes. Sorry. Yeah. While she
Okay.
was going over how to save the documents so that it's not be shown as a text file, the screen was stuck. That's why I kept on typing that I couldn't see the screen at all. So, like, I wasn't able to see how to like show it on the Jupyter notebook section. That's what I was asking for. But the screen was stuck when she was going over it. So we can just go over it in the next class since time has gone.
Okay, the recording is available. So when you watch it, you'll see it on the recording. All right. Okay. Let me just take this last one so that we have to close now. I respect your time as well. So let us take this last one. The skip principle for indexing, you mentioned the first quiz number 3. Okay, 062. We mentioned that during the last class. When you have a list, and then let me look for example, you have a list like this, and then you want to skip my lists. I want all the elements from 0 to 3, but then I want it to skip in twos. That is, it's going to give me the first element, skip the next one, that is the first and second elements, and give me the third element, skip the fourth element and the third element. But because there's nothing, this is where it's going to end. So the results will give me 1 and 3. So that's how to do your increment. So the answer is 1 and 3. So if you're skipping in trees, you are going to count 1, 2, 3. Then it skips this tree and it gives you the next element. So that's how it's that skipping is done. Do we get it? So it's going to give you the first element, skips the word 1, 2, 3, and that's how you get the next element. Do we understand now? Is that clear now? Is that clear? All right. Thank you all so much for joining. Thank you for your time, and it's nice having this session with us. For persons that there are some persons that are volunteering with us, will be reaching out to you. So there's so much to be done. There is so much to be done. We're volunteering with, we'll be reaching out to you to join us in this work, this thing that we are doing. And also, if you'd like to support what we are doing, you can always support us through the donation page on our website as well. Thank you very much, and please try as much as possible to follow through the the contents on the LMS and the recordings. They will help. Don't worry, by the end of this all 8 weeks, it's going to be, I mean, you'd have learned so much. I mean, you would have learned so much. I know for some people it's very, very challenging, also especially people that are just getting started and they've not done this before, but it's part of the learning process. And I believe that you have, always you have a good result at the end of the day. You have every reason to, to be happy at the end of the day. All right. So enjoy the rest of your evening, your morning, and we'll meet at the next class. Have a great day. Thank you, everybody. Toy.
All right, bye.